Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
Taylor Swift is a link builder. There were rumors that she would get engaged. Our client said, let's give them a free wedding venue. And then we got them 50 links. That's digital PR.
Managing multiple clients or large websites? Automate your SEO with Ellie AI. Start your free trial now.
I'm impressed that you're brave enough to just jump down off the stage. It's a good balance thing. So, well, thank you all for coming. I'm Ellie Hughes. As Dan introduced me very well before, do talk to me about my British Museum dissertation if you really love Egyptology or archaeology. But what I wanted to talk about today is, this is a slightly flippant way of expressing it, but you've got a CRO program in place and maybe it's not going how you wanted, or you're the person who got hired to do CRO or experimentation, and then you were sold this big vision of how much power you'd have to implement it, and actually it didn't work out that way. Or maybe you're building a business case for experimentation within your business and actually you're not sure where it's really going. Are you actually able to execute the vision that you thought you could? So one of the things that really inspired me was, we're the wrong way round. We're the wrong way round. You can see my speaker notes now. Basically saying, this quote is great, you must remember to say it, Ellie. So I think, this is a quote that for me is really about how you can think about your experimentation culture. Like, without knowing how to sort of fail greatly, you can't really achieve greatly. You have to have that ambition and vision to do something that other people might not like you to do, so that you can actually achieve something really great. However, one of the things that often happens is stuff doesn't work out how you expect. And one of the things that I did earlier this year, throughout every conference I've been at this year, I've actually asked people what happened in their own CRO programs. So I asked people, this is data from MeasureCamp, Experimentation Elite, Paris MeasureCamp, loads of different conferences I've been to this year. Think of a time you wanted to run an A/B test, but something stopped you. What did you do instead? A lot of people looked at their analytics. Some people ran user testing. Some people just had to develop it and launch it anyway. They did a mock-up. I'm sorry the writing is a little bit small, but they did a mock-up or prototype and got some internal users to review it. But you can see overwhelmingly people ended up doing their product analytics instead. And in this instance, it was clearly someone who wanted to run some A/B tests, but they couldn't. Something stopped them. That buy-in wasn't there in the business and they needed to do something else instead. And then I also asked them, you wanted to collect more evidence, but what normally prevents you? The biggest thing was that people couldn't get their stakeholders to agree what to do. So they had people who they needed to convince of something, they needed their buy-in, but they weren't able to agree what to do. Or their organization was either too small or too big for them to make decisions effectively. In large enterprise organizations, sometimes decision-making is like treacle. You can't really get anywhere. Or in a very small business, sometimes everyone is doing multiple hats and multiple jobs, so you can't actually get anywhere and make decisions. So these are some of the reasons why people, what they did instead in the first instance, and why they couldn't make a decision, and what prevented them from making progress. So this is some real customer research around what's happening in real organizations in the world. And so this is really the problem that this sets up sometimes, is you don't have that buy-in, you don't have that program that is working, how much you have this vision in your head that it could do. And so one of the things that we're taught as CROs is that we have to have a culture of experimentation. And, we must have this amazing culture of experimentation. And this article in the Harvard Business Review is fantastic. And if you read Stefan Tomke's book, it is fantastic. But it sets this really high bar for how we need to think about experimentation culture. So personally, how is it defined? Curiosity is nurtured. Data trumps opinion. Anyone can commission a test. All experiments are ethical. I think we made a point earlier about ethical experimentation. And you can embrace a new model of leadership where people could come to you with issues where things fail, etc. And here's an example of an experimentation culture with and without testing. Innovation and adaptability is greater. Risk reduction is less stressful. It's less stressful, less risk. Resource optimization, and you're also aligning with the needs of users in the marketplace much better. So everything is a bit better with testing rather than without testing. But the thing is, though, this feels really hard. You have this really difficult vision for what you want to do, and it can feel quite difficult. So one of the things I wanted to think about was, why does it feel so hard and what can we do about it? So What is the smallest thing we can do to test this idea? And this is often something that I say to product managers, every role that I'm in. What's the smallest thing we can do to test the idea? And that's the beginning of the nub of an experimentation culture. You don't have to have this amazing, I've got a massive CRO team and my operating model's amazing and our product ways of working are amazing, but can you step back and say, what's the smallest thing I can do to test the idea? And also thinking about, overcoming your own fear. You've got to be the visionary and having a realistic vision for your organization. Where are you today? If you're in a business that has 0 CRO happening and you want to be a business that's got 100% CRO happening, that's not going to happen overnight. You need to have a vision and a plan for what the to-be is and what's realistic for you. If you're from a particular sector like finance, maybe public sector, you might have a very different vision for the potential possibilities within your world versus maybe an e-commerce site who can make everything very tech first and very oriented towards what they want to do with CRO. What's the difference between those two places? And so really stripping it back, my biggest bit of advice is it's fine. It's okay that you've maybe got this great vision for what you want to achieve and you're not there yet. And that can feel uncomfortable, but actually you just have to say to yourself, it's okay, this is fine. So I'm going to talk through a few reasons why it's actually okay. So the first one is I often ask people, maybe Dan, you can give people stickers at the end if they can guess what this quote is from, in addition to giving out stickers for people getting questions in. So every time I read out something, I want you to replace in your mind the word our country with our company. And I apologize that some of the font sizes in my deck are very different. So, in our country, said Alice, you'd get somewhere else if you run very fast for a long time. A slow sort of country, said the Queen. In this country, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. So, if anyone's guessed straight away what this quote is from, it is from Alice in Wonderland, and the Red Queen hypothesis, which is an evolutionary system, a theory in evolutionary systems, where continuing adaptation is needed in order for a species to maintain its relative fitness amongst the systems it is co-evolving with. So there you go, that's where my geology degree is come into the talk, I suppose. And think of a cheetah versus a gazelle. When they first evolved, they did not run fast. They did not run as fast as they did today, but because the cheetah got faster and it killed more gazelles that were slow, the gazelles had to get faster. And because the gazelles got faster, then the cheetahs had to get faster because otherwise they weren't able to eat. And so you can see that every time you are getting better, your competitors are also having to get better with you. And so whereas maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the level of things that you could do in CRO that would have gotten you really, really big uplift, today, actually, you're having to fight harder and harder to get smaller and smaller margins in order to compete with your competitors. So that's one reason why it can feel really, really difficult, is that actually there's this competition between you and others. The second is that for those of you who think about it more broadly beyond the scope of CRO and more around innovation, is that actually it's not binary. It's not, yes, it's happening, no, it's not happening. It's a scale. It's not just one thing. So I like to think about it as there are types of innovation, types of experimentation that are around known problems where you do incremental optimization. There are others where there are unknown problems that require different kinds of disruption. And within that scale, you've got everything from continuous improvement through to moving into a brand new sector or market. And it's making changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products, is how you'd probably define innovation. And for us, it includes different things at different sizes and scales. And the kind of people working on the really disruptive stuff over here are often not the people who are working on the continuous optimization. I've worked in organizations before where you'll have a CRO team who are doing continuous improvement of the current website. At the same time, another part of the company is building a new digital transformation that is literally going to wipe out the website that's being optimized by those individuals over there. And so you get this discontinuous, disconnected experience of trying to innovate the business, and they don't seem to be working together. And again, that makes it feel really difficult and really hard. That's just me. And then in addition to it, whether it's a linear scale, but it could be a curve. You often start off with a really strong innovation, you improve, you reach maturity, and actually to make a really big step change, you need to then pick the next wonderful thing and keep moving up the curve. And that's the article that's from at the bottom there. So reason 3 why it can feel very hard is your brain power versus speed. So there's a really interesting article from Knowledge Management Theory, which is the number of ideas produced is inversely proportional to the creative effort for an idea. So this is me trying to express this in the graph here, where actually if you think of a really big idea that you've come up with, may have taken you much longer to ideate and create to make it as novel versus an idea that's a little bit smaller. So if you think about when you're delivering in sprints and you're doing kind of small story point ideas, and you can do them quite quickly versus much larger ideas that might take you longer to both think up, ideate, and deliver. And these people did some really interesting research. And actually what they kind of recommend, so the name of the article, is maximizing creativity good? The importance of elaboration and internal confidence in producing creative ideas. Instead of attempting to maximize creativity, is it possible that going for quantity of experiments, a quantity of normal conventional ideas may actually generate overall superior creative power, creative efficacy compared to your competitors? So this is the thing, we often get too deep in the idea of how many experiments am I running per year? How many are high quality ideas? How many are low quality ideas? Were the ideas good? Were the ideas bad? And actually we can get into sort of decision paralysis because of that. So what are some of the solutions? Just going to grab some water. So what are some of the solutions that you can use in your everyday practice to try and improve this? Like you're stuck with this wall of not being able to prove the case of CRO in your business, or you've got all these problems that are happening to you. The first one is to sell your story. I know a few of the talks today were about things like how to visualize, how to do data storytelling. We talked about it a little bit on the analytics panel I was on yesterday. But because we're all data people here, I think nearly everyone's data people here, / marketing data people, using evidence over politics. So whether you're fitting your facts to a story or you're trying to fit a story around your facts, evidence to others what is or isn't working, but in a way that's palatable to them. If you use too much evidence, you're going to lose your audience. If you don't use enough politics in order to convince them, then again, you won't be able to sell your story. On the flip side though, if you use too much politics, you may struggle as well, because you do need to use your political powers of persuasion. And the way I like to think about it is think about the person who's the most difficult to convince in your team, who is the worst stakeholder you work with or client that you work with in your business. Find an excuse to ring that person up every week and talk to them. Even if it's just to talk to them about what you did at the weekend or what they did at the weekend, the things that your kids and their kids have in common. Find an excuse to talk to them on a regular basis and keep yourself present in their mind, but also make sure that there isn't a vacuum. Sorry, my timer disappeared and I was like, that there isn't like a vacuum that you're creating around your ideas, so that this person starts to build their own idea of how you can work. But you have to keep this balance, right, between having too much evidence versus politics. I can think of an example from my own life where when I used to report to a chief product officer who I became very entrenched with, and it was because I was so particular about the evidence I was using, and I said it has to be done this way. And we became entrenched because he wanted it done a different way. Instead of me kind of working him and massaging him as a stakeholder and achieving a compromise, instead what happened was that we became further and further apart. So it's very, very important. Solution 2, I don't know why it's making this funny thing in the middle, but think about experimentation like a change management program. So whenever you want to change something in your business to convince others to do something for you, don't think about it like, oh, this is the theory. This is my ivory tower approach to how I can do experimentation. It has to be the right way. This is the perfect way of doing this. Think about the different people in the business that you need to act on to convince them, to motivate them to do things for you. And this principle applies whether you're doing experimentation, whether you're doing any kind of thing where you're probably using data to convince someone else to do something for you, or you're using data, making the case for something. But it isn't about the subject. It isn't about how clever you are, how much you know about experimentation. It's about what's inhibiting this person from agreeing with you, inhibiting this person from letting you make the change that you want them to. And this is a very good article from the States from this group called Public Narrative or Narrative Arts. And in each of the ones on the left, these are the inhibitors that stop someone from making an action for you or being in your core or doing something for you. And these are the motivators that align with that inhibitor. So if someone is exhibiting kind of inertia, they're not doing something on time, they're not kind of agreeing with you straight away, use urgency to overcome that. If the person has got apathy, use anger. If the person has got fear, use hope. And the last one, the self-doubt one, the YCMAD, that stands for you can make a difference. So when someone is like, oh, I'm really doubting myself, you can help them to get aligned with you by saying, well, you can make a difference. If you do this for me, you're going to help me. And so thinking about the ways that you can use a framework like this one and think of your experimentation program you're trying to deliver to create within your business, it's a change management. Trying to shift an entire business from not using data in their decision-making to using data in their decision-making. And then solution 3, screw up, basically. It's way more powerful if you let a team make a mistake and then they learn from their mistake, then you try and give them all the theory, all the training you possibly can in advance in the hope that some little tiny nub of it will have disseminated into their brain and they'll remember it in 6 weeks' time when they're actually delivering the experiment. That's just not going to happen. And actually that chief product officer that I used to get very entrenched with, the best piece of advice he ever gave me was, let the person fail. They will come back to you because they've realized they've failed. So you can actually think about it as you've allowed them to go off and do like 12 experiments in a row that are all non-significant and you cannot use the data from them. They'll come back to you and go, we don't know what we did wrong. And you're like, aha, you're now primed, you're now ready to hear the message around what you might have done wrong. And to be honest, I know there's a lot of people who post this on LinkedIn about whether hundreds of crappy experiments are better, is a superior culture than doing 0 high quality experiments. Obviously 0 experiments isn't good enough. So it's about finding that balance between doing too many poor experiments and a small number of sort of high quality experiments. And that goes back to the novelty thing. So to wrap up, thinking about when you're challenged on your business case for experimentation in your business, or when you're challenged to get to your vision that you have when you start working in CRO in your business, what can you do when it's kind of failed and it's a dirty word and nobody really wants to run any more experiments because they don't believe anymore? And again, the font thing just made really big numbers, but I hope you can see them at the back. So remember that everything's fine. There's always good reasons for not hitting your high ambition for where CRO should be in your business. Sell your story and balance your evidence versus your politics. If you use too much evidence, you'll lose the audience. If you use too much politics, you'll be a bit schmaltzy and nobody will want to listen to you. People won't think you're credible. Manage change. Think about what's inhibiting change and focus on overcoming it. And then focus on learning and making mistakes. And that's a learning opportunity for you and everyone involved. They can then bring you in like you're, the wizard, like you're the person who's going to come in and fix all their problems for them. You're the therapist who can support them with their CRO problems. And then remember this quote, only those who really dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. You've just got to really be embracing of that mistake making and challenge, really. So I want to say thank you all for listening. Scans, connect with me on LinkedIn. I always forget to ask people to connect with me on LinkedIn. And then for anyone who scans this one, we'll be sending out a free thing, basically. So please. So it's a free thing that will help you manage your experiments and actually put really good ideas in place and capture all the properties about your experiments. But I always forget to ask people to connect with me on LinkedIn, so please do. And that's it.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.